"Sir, you forgot your wallet." The waitress ran after a billionaire, only to become his contract wife. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have one small request. Please click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you will not miss our newest videos. It only takes a second, it is completely free, and it is the best way to support us in bringing you more heartfelt, meaningful stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Tell us your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Sometimes, fate doesn't whisper, it rains. Let us return to our main character. It was past midnight in the harbor district of Seattle, where the rain came down like silk threads, quiet but endless. Inside the small harbor diner, the jukebox hummed an old jazz tune, blending with the faint smell of burnt coffee. Tess Morgan wiped the last table of her shift, her apron faded from too many washes. The night was long, the tips were short, and she had stopped expecting surprises. Then the door opened. A man walked in tall, composed, carrying the kind of silence that filled the room before he even spoke. His charcoal suit was still crisp, despite the drizzle outside. His silver watch caught the flickering neon light. His voice was low, dry. "Black coffee, and the quietest corner you've got." Oh, Tess raised a brow. "Sure thing, Mr. Sunshine." He didn't react, just sat, fingers drumming once against the counter, eyes lost somewhere far beyond the window. She served the coffee, noticed how he never touched the sugar, how his shoulders seemed built to carry secrets. 15 minutes later, the cup was empty, the seat was cold, and on the table a single $1 bill. Tess sighed. "Big spender," she murmured, half amused, half tired. As she reached for the cup, something caught her eye, a black leather wallet, edges worn smooth, initials NH engraved in silver. Her gaze darted toward the door. The man was gone. The street outside shimmered with rain. "You've got to be kidding me," she whispered. Without thinking, she grabbed her jacket, clutching the wallet like it might burn her fingers, and ran out into the downpour. The air was cold enough to sting. Streetlights blurred into golden halos. She spotted him half a block away, coat lifted against the wind. "Sir, you forgot your wallet." Her voice cracked through the rain. He turned, slowly. The world seemed to pause with him. Water dripped from Tess's hair as she held out the wallet, her hand trembling slightly. "Seattle's full of thieves," she said, catching her breath. "But I'm not one of them." He looked at her, eyes unreadable, a man who measured the world in transactions, not gestures. Then, a faint curve at the corner of his mouth. "Then you're rarer than I thought." He took the wallet, turned away, and walked into the night like a shadow swallowed by fog. Tess stood there, rain running down her face, unsure if it was water or the strange heat of something she couldn't name. Behind her, the diner's neon sign flickered between pink and blue, casting her reflection on the wet pavement, small, stubborn, and a little lost. She looked at her hands, still warm from holding what he'd left behind, and whispered to herself, "Who forgets something that valuable?" But deep down, she felt it tonight wasn't an accident. As the rain softened into mist, Tess turned back toward the diner, unaware that this simple act of honesty had just rewritten the map of her life. And somewhere down that dark, rain-slick street, the man with the initials, NH, glanced once at the wallet in his hand and, for the first time in years, smiled. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the sky still looked tired. A pale light spilled through the diner windows, touching the chrome counters and empty booths. Tess Morgan was back behind the counter, refilling sugar jars and wiping the same spot twice. The night before still played in her mind, his voice, his eyes, the rain. She shook it off. Life did not stop for moments like that. In the kitchen, the radio crackled with morning news about hospital bills rising again. Tess turned it down. Her mother's dialysis treatment was due next week. Her sister, Emma, had just been accepted to college but had no way to pay the first semester. The math never added up. The bell above the door chimed. She didn't look up at first, just another customer. Then she froze. The man from last night stepped in, the same calm presence, the same gray suit now crisp and dry. He placed his wallet on the counter. "You said you're honest," he said quietly. "I'm counting on that." Tess blinked, half amused, half cautious. "If you came back to tip better, that's a good start." A small smile touched his lips, the kind of smile that didn't belong to someone used to smiling. Not exactly. I need your help with something. Unconventional. Her brows furrowed. Help? From me? He nodded, resting his hand on the wallet like it held more than money. Let's just say honesty is hard to find. And right now, I need it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, a truck splashed through a puddle. Inside, the jukebox stayed silent. Tess crossed her arms. You don't even know me. I know enough, he replied. You ran into the rain for a stranger. That tells me what I need to know. She exhaled slowly, unsure whether to feel flattered or wary. Something in his tone, not commanding, not pleading, just certain, made her pulse skip. When he finally met her eyes again, there was no arrogance left, only intent. My name is Noah Harrington, he said, and I have a proposal. The word hung between them, steady as the ticking clock, and for reasons she couldn't explain, Tess didn't look away. The clock above the counter ticked louder than usual. Tess stood still, her towel half folded in her hands. Noah Harrington didn't waste time. He sat across from her, posture straight, eyes steady. His tone carried no charm, only purpose. I'll be honest, he said. The board wants stability. After I called off an engagement with a partner's daughter, investors got nervous. They think a family man is a safe man. Tess frowned. So you need a wife to look reliable? A wife, he repeated, the word sharp and deliberate. For 1 year. Only on paper. Only in public. She blinked, then let out a short laugh. You're serious? You want a waitress to play Cinderella? No. His answer came fast, firm. I want someone who doesn't care about castles. He reached into his briefcase and placed a cream envelope on the counter between them. Inside, a stack of typed pages, the sound of contracts, not stories. Tess looked down. Her reflection shimmered on the polished surface, caught between ink and rainlight. She flipped the first page, scanning the lines. No emotional involvement. Asterisk public appearances at 5 major events. Asterisk complete confidentiality. Termination after 12 months. Each condition felt heavier than the one before. Her voice softened. You really think life works like this? You can just hire a person to make yourself look human? Noah didn't flinch. You think this is about image? He leaned forward, eyes darker now. I've lived in a world where truth is a transaction. And you, Miss Morgan, are the first honest thing I've seen in years. Something inside her shifted, torn between disbelief and a strange empathy. You don't even know me, she whispered. I know enough, he said quietly. You ran through the rain to return a wallet that wasn't yours. That's enough for me. Her fingers tightened on the paper. She thought of her mother's tired smile. The constant beep of hospital monitors. The bills stacked by the fridge. The voice of the doctor still echoed in her head. Without another treatment, we can't promise improvement. Tess swallowed hard. If I sign this, you'll cover her treatment? Every cent. The way he said it not as a bargain, but a vow left her breathless. The diner felt suddenly too small, the air too still. She set the pen against the dotted line. Her hands trembled, her heart did not. In one clean motion, she signed her name, Tess Morgan. For a long moment, Noah didn't speak. He simply watched her, the faintest hint of respect softening his expression. Welcome to the arrangement, he said. She forced a smile, though her chest felt tight. Congratulations, Mr. Harrington. You just bought yourself a wife. Outside, the rain began again, soft, steady, relentless. And for Tess, every drop sounded like a countdown. The next afternoon, Tess found herself standing before iron gates taller than any building she had ever cleaned. The Harrington estate stretched behind them, quiet and endless. When the gates opened, it felt less like entering a home and more like crossing into another world. Marble floors gleamed under the light, so polished she could see her reflection tremble across them. The air smelled faintly of old wood and distance. Her sneakers squeaked once, echoing down the long hallway lined with portraits that seemed to watch her pass. Tess clutched the strap of her small backpack like a charm. This isn't a home, she murmured. It's a museum that breathes. Noah's voice came from behind her, calm but softer than before. Then maybe you'll remind it what living feels like. She turned toward him, unsure whether it was a compliment or a warning. By evening, She was seated at the long dining table beneath a chandelier the size of her old apartment. Every piece of silverware glimmered like it had never been used. The air was so formal it almost hurt to breathe. Across from her sat Noah's mother, posture straight, eyes sharp. To her left, a woman Tess recognized from the papers, Vanessa Hale, the former fiancée. The realization hit like a drop of cold water down her spine. Dinner began in silence, the kind that stretched forever. Tess tried to mimic the others, choosing the right fork, the right knife. She failed halfway through the salad. The faint clink of metal echoed louder than thunder. Noah's mother lifted a brow. "You're not accustomed to formal settings, I assume." Tess swallowed. "Not unless you count the diner's breakfast rush." "Oh." Across the table, Vanessa let out a quiet laugh. "So, where did you two meet? A charity gala? Or a small-town diner?" The words dripped with honey and poison. Tess's cheeks warmed. She set her fork down slowly, not trusting herself to answer. Before the silence could tighten further, Noah spoke, voice calm and even. "We met on a rainy night," he said. "She returned something that wasn't hers, and somehow gave back a piece of peace I thought I'd lost." The room went still. Even Vanessa's smirk faltered. Tess looked at him, startled. He didn't glance her way, just continued eating, as if he hadn't just rewritten the entire story. For the first time since she'd stepped inside the house, she felt a strange steadiness in her chest, like maybe, for a moment, she belonged. Outside, the rain began again, brushing against the tall windows. Soft and distant, a quiet reminder that every storm leaves something new behind. The next morning began with a lesson Tess hadn't signed up for: how to belong in a world that would never really be hers. In the Harrington ballroom, sunlight spilled across a long table set for training. A woman in pearls adjusted Tess's posture, moving her shoulders, repositioning her hands. "Smile softer," the instructor said. "Tilt your head, but not too low. Elegance is balance." Tess tried. She held the porcelain cup like it was made of air, but her fingers slipped. Hot tea spilled across the lace tablecloth. The instructor gasped. Tess froze. From the corner, Noah watched, one hand in his pocket, the other pressed to his lips, hiding a smile. "Are you finding this funny?" Tess muttered, cheeks burning. "No," he said, almost gently. "I just think, for the first time, this place looks like someone actually lives here." She rolled her eyes but couldn't stop the tiny curve tugging at her mouth. From that day on, every afternoon, he would pass by during her lessons, never interfering, just standing at the edge of the room. And every time, she could feel his eyes on her, steady and warm, like sunlight slipping through a window. A few days later, he took her to a fitting for the upcoming charity gala. The designer fussed around her, pinning silk and adjusting fabric until the mirror reflected a stranger, elegant, glowing, untouchable. Tess stared at her reflection, uneasy. "I look out of place." Noah's voice was calm behind her. "No, you just haven't learned how to see yourself as beautiful yet." She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. The weight of his gaze felt heavier than the gown. And that sentence, soft, almost accidental, followed her through the entire day. The night of the gala arrived with 1,000 lights and 1,000 eyes. The chandelier above them shimmered like stars trapped in glass. Tess walked beside Noah, every step practiced, every breath measured. When her nerves threatened to take over, his hand brushed hers just enough to remind her, "You're not alone." Then came Vanessa. "Some people," Vanessa said sweetly, "seem more comfortable holding trays than champagne." Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and quiet. Tess felt her chest tighten, her instinct to retreat rising fast. But Noah's hand closed around hers, firm and certain. He looked directly at the guests and said, clear and calm, "She may not have been born in silk, but her honesty is worth more than every diamond in this room." Silence fell. The kind that stings. Tess didn't breathe. She just stared at him, the man who could silence an entire room with one truth. For the first time that night, the noise of the world faded, only the sound of her heartbeat remained. Later, in the car, Seattle lights streaked past the window like falling stars. Neither of them spoke at first. "You didn't have to say that," she murmured. "I wasn't pretending, Tess," he said quietly. "I just told the truth." She turned her face toward the glass, hiding a smile that felt strange and fragile. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It felt peaceful. The next day, something inside her shifted. Her walk straightened, her voice steadied. She stopped flinching under the housekeeper's judgmental gaze. Every night, when Noah worked late in his office, Tess would wait up, bringing him coffee before she went to bed. "Do you ever rest?" she asked once. "I forgot how," he replied. She grinned softly. "Then learn again, Harrington." He laughed, really laughed, the sound low and real, echoing through the quiet hall. One morning, rain returned, gentle and gray. Noah stood under the portico, phone pressed to his ear, voice clipped with tension. Something about a merger, a contract, another battle. Tess stepped outside, umbrella in hand. She didn't interrupt, didn't speak. She simply held the umbrella over him and offered a steaming cup of coffee. He glanced sideways, surprised. "Aren't you afraid of getting wet?" She smiled. "I worked in a diner. Rain is just rain." He looked at her, really looked this time. The air seemed to pause between them, thick with something neither dared to name. His eyes softened, hairs dropped. The rain kept falling, slow and steady, tracing silver lines down the edge of the umbrella. And in that small silence, something unspoken began to bloom, fragile, quiet, but undeniably real. The kind of thing that starts not with words, but with a look that lingers too long to be mistaken. After the gala, something subtle began to shift inside the Harrington mansion. The air between Tess and Noah no longer carried silence, it carried stories. Dinner stopped feeling like a test. They sat across from each other, candles flickering low, plates forgotten between them. Tess told him about her childhood in the suburbs, the cracked porch steps, her mother playing old jazz records on Sunday mornings, her sister Emma dreaming of becoming a doctor. She laughed softly. "We used to count the stars above the roof, pretend each one was a wish waiting to come true. I ran out of stars before the bills stopped coming." Noah listened, eyes calm but shadowed. "My world never had that kind of quiet. Parties, cameras, meetings. I've had birthdays where no one remembered whose they were." She tilted her head. "You sound lonely." He gave a faint, self-deprecating smile. "The higher you climb, the fewer voices tell you the truth." "That, maybe," she said gently. "They stopped because you never listened." That hit somewhere he didn't expect. His gaze lingered on her, not defensive, not cold, just quiet. For once, he didn't argue. A few nights later, she found him in the kitchen after midnight. He was still dressed from work, sleeves rolled up, eyes fixed on a folded newspaper. When she poured milk into a pot, the silence between them filled with the faint hum of the refrigerator. Then he spoke, voice low, careful. "I used to think choosing work over love made me strong." He set the paper down, a headline about last year's broken engagement. "It didn't. It just made me a coward." "Oh." Tess turned to face him, cup in hand. "Everyone's afraid to get hurt," she said softly. "But not everyone's brave enough to admit it." He looked up. For a moment, their eyes met. Time seemed to draw still around that small light in the kitchen. Then she smiled, just enough to break the weight between them. "Milk or no milk?" His lips curved slightly. "You choose." The air felt warmer somehow, though the window fogged with cold. Later that week, rain returned, gentle against the tall windows. Tess sat at the kitchen island, sketchbook open. The faint sound of pencil on paper filled the room. She was drawing the chandelier from the gala, every curve, every shimmer, captured in careful graphite lines. Noah entered quietly, stopping behind her. His voice was a whisper against the rain. "That's beautiful." She didn't look up. "It's just lines and shadows." He moved closer. "Funny, it looks more alive than the real one." She turned her head slightly, meeting his reflection in the dark window. Maybe because the real one was never meant to feel. He sat opposite her, leaning forward, elbows on the counter. His gaze dropped to the page. "Maybe the things we pretend," he said quietly, "sometimes draw what's real." The words lingered, heavier than they sounded. Tess lifted her eyes. There was something in his expression she hadn't seen before, a softness breaking through the steel. For a long moment, neither moved. The world outside blurred to gray. When he reached across the counter, his hand brushed hers, not demanding, not testing. Just a question, wordless and trembling. She didn't pull away. The clock ticked once, faintly, in rhythm with her heartbeat. A small, unsteady smile formed on her lips, one that reached her eyes before she realized it. The warmth in that kitchen didn't belong to the lights. It came from the quiet understanding between two people who had both forgotten how to be seen. He didn't say her name, but she heard it in the way he breathed. She didn't say his, but he saw it in the way she looked back. Outside, the rain fell steady and soft, tracing paths down the windowpane like threads of light. Inside, their joined hands stayed still fragile, suspended in the space between what was written in a contract and what had already begun to rewrite itself in their hearts. Tess glanced down at the drawing again. The chandelier looked different now, warmer, brighter, as if light were coming from within instead of around it. Noah followed her gaze. "It's changed," he murmured. She nodded. "Maybe I did too." He wanted to answer, but words felt too small. So he just watched her, and she let him. The rain softened into silence. The clock struck 1. Somewhere, beneath the hush of the mansion, two lives that were never meant to cross had found a rhythm, quiet, tentative, but real. Neither of them dared call it love, but both knew, without speaking, that something had begun, something neither contract nor reason could undo. Morning light spilled through the tall windows of the Harrington estate, bright and golden. For once, the house didn't feel cold. Tess woke to the scent of coffee. On the bedside table sat a cup, still warm, and a small folded note written in Noah's neat hand. "Long meeting today. Don't skip breakfast. N." She smiled to herself, fingertips brushing the edge of the paper. His voice seemed to linger in the quiet, steady, familiar, almost kind. The mansion, once hollow, now felt like it could breathe. By afternoon, she walked down the long corridor toward his study. Noah's voice carried through the half-open door, firm and clipped. "I don't need them to believe I'm happy," he said into the conference call. "I just need them to believe I'm in control." He ended the call, shoulders heavy, eyes shadowed with fatigue. "Everything all right?" she asked. He glanced up. "Fine. They don't like surprises, especially the kind that wear wedding rings." She tried to smile. "They think you married me for show?" "Some do," he said. "But I don't care." The words hit harder than she expected. "Don't care." She nodded, forcing her voice steady. "Right. Of course." He turned away, already buried in his files. But the small ache stayed, quiet and sharp, somewhere between her ribs. The next night, the world turned dazzling and cruel. The Harrington charity auction glittered with chandeliers and champagne. Tess walked beside Noah in a deep blue gown, his hand resting lightly on her back. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Tonight, just stay close to me." She nodded, heart unsteady. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was pretending. Music rose, laughter swirled. Then, through the crowd, a familiar figure took the stage. Vanessa Hale, perfect smile, golden dress, eyes full of calculation. "Before we continue," she said sweetly, "I have a little gift. Proof that love in high society is not without too fine print." Gasps rippled as she lifted a gold envelope and slid out a stack of papers. At the top, Harrington Resort's contract agreement. "This," Vanessa said, voice dripping with sugar, "is what binds them, not love clauses." The room fractured. Flashes exploded. Murmurs filled the air. Tess couldn't move. The words blurred. She turned toward Noah. His face had gone pale, jaw tight, eyes wide. "You." Her voice broke. "Tess, listen to me. You promised this would stay between us. I didn't leak it. Someone—" "It doesn't matter who," she said, breath shaking. "It's out there, in front of everyone. You think that makes it different?" He reached for her, but she stepped back. "All I ever did was believe you," she whispered. "And now I'm the joke." Vanessa's smile gleamed under the lights, triumphant and cruel. Tess's throat tightened. "You can fix your empire, Noah," she said softly. "But you can't fix me." She slipped off her ring and pressed it into his palm along with a folded piece of paper, edges smudged with pencil, the chandelier sketch. "Keep it," she said. "If you still need to remember something real." "Oh." Then she turned, walking past the sea of flashing cameras, her reflection breaking apart in every lens. That night, Rain came hard against the city. Tess found her way back to Harbor Diner, hair undone, dress soaked, mascara bleeding into faint gray lines. She sat at the corner, booth their booth. On the table lay a small, worn wallet. She had kept it all this time, tucked away like proof that the beginning had meant something. She opened it gently. Inside was a photograph of Noah and his late father. She stared at it, then closed it again. "So it started with this wallet," she whispered, "and ended the same way." Her voice trembled, but no tears came. She had none left. Outside, the neon sign flickered over wet pavement. The world kept moving, as if nothing had broken. Across town, in the empty estate, Noah stood alone in his office. His phone buzzed with headlines, statements, questions, all unanswered. "Sir, the press," his assistant began. "Let them talk," Noah said flatly. He picked up the sketch she'd left behind. Rain had blurred the lines, turning the chandelier into a wash of gray light. He traced the ruined paper with his thumb. "She's worth more than this entire empire," he whispered. The lamps cast a faint glow across his desk, dim and golden, like the last bit of warmth fading from his world. And as the rain kept falling, the only thing left shining was the memory of her drawing and the space where she used to stand. Days passed, but the house did not breathe the same. Every room still carried her the scent of her coffee, the sketchbook left open, the faint echo of her laughter trapped between the marble walls. Noah tried to work, but the numbers blurred. Her absence filled every corner like air gone heavy. He'd never known silence could make a man lose balance. In the study, the chandelier sketch now framed, rain-stained and fragile, rested on his desk. He traced the blurred pencil lines with his fingertips. They were imperfect, human, alive. Just like her. He closed his eyes. For the first time in years, the great Noah Harrington felt small, not because he had lost control, but because he finally knew what he was missing. And that realization led him to one decision. The next morning, flashbulbs lit the city. At the press conference, reporters packed the room, voices sharp with accusation. Cameras clicked like gunfire. Noah stepped up to the podium, ignoring the printed speech laid before him. His hands trembled once, then steadied. "Yes," he began, his voice quiet but sure. "There was a contract." The murmurs swelled. He didn't stop. "I was supposed to fake a marriage, to repair an image, to calm the board. But somewhere between the lies, I fell in love with the truth." He paused, letting the words settle. "I fell in love with her." The room went still. Reporters froze, cameras flashing without sound. "I know what this means," he continued. "The board will remove me. The press will devour me. But if keeping my empire means losing her, I'll let it burn." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It was the first time anyone had heard him speak without armor. Noah stepped down from the podium. Behind him, chaos erupted questions. Shouts. Lights. But he kept walking. Through the crowd. Through the flash. Through the storm he had created. He walked until the noise was behind him, until the only thing left was the sound of rain against the street. Harbor Diner looked the same, neon flickering, rain tapping softly on the windows. Inside, Tess stood at the counter, hair tied back, wiping down the same tables she had the night they met. She didn't turn when the bell rang. "We're closing soon," she said, tired but calm. A pause. Then a voice she knew by heart. "Then I'll make it quick." She froze, cloth still in hand. Noah stood there, rain dripping from his coat, eyes steady but stripped of pride. He reached into his bag and set something on the counter aframe. Inside it was the sketch of the chandelier, restored, preserved. "This," he said softly, "kept me alive when you left." Tess stared at the drawing, at the hand that once trembled when he signed that cursed contract. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "You're supposed to be fixing what's left." He shook his head. "I already did, by telling them the truth." Her eyes widened. "You told them?" "Everything." His voice broke slightly. "The contract, the lie, and the part that stopped being one." For a long time, neither spoke. Rain filled the silence between them. Finally, she asked, voice low. "So what now? Another agreement? Another promise? With an expiration date?" He stepped closer, eyes unwavering. "No contracts this time," he said. "No conditions, just a promise." She looked at him, The man who once measured the world in deals, now standing before her empty-handed. Tess's breath caught. "And if I believe you?" He smiled, faint and real. "Then it's forever." The jukebox clicked softly behind them, a new song starting slow, tender, almost shy. For the first time in too long, she let herself smile. And as the rain whispered against the windows, the world outside blurred, leaving only two figures under the glow of neon, the man who finally learned how to be honest, and the woman who taught him what that meant. The rain had stopped by the time dawn reached the harbor. The diner lights were off, but inside, it still smelled of coffee and rain. Tess stood behind the counter, hands resting on the same surface where everything had once begun. Noah stepped closer, his coat draped over his arm, eyes steady, voice low. "I have something for you." He reached into his pocket and placed a small velvet box on the counter. It looked simple. No shine, no brand, no performance. Just truth. When he opened it, a plain silver ring caught the light. "Let's make it real," he said. Tess's eyes filled, tears glimmering like the rain outside. She tried to smile, her voice trembling between disbelief and relief. "If I say yes, it means forever." He nodded once. "Forever is all I want." She laughed softly, wiping at her cheeks. "You're sure?" "No contracts. No terms. No signatures," he said. "Only us." The jukebox clicked and hummed to life, a slow song replacing the silence. The same melody that had played the night they first met. They moved closer, the air between them warmer than any light. His hand found hers, their fingers fitting together as if they'd always been meant to. Under the neon glow, they stood the billionaire who had learned how to lose, and the waitress who had taught him how to love. The music swelled. She leaned into him, the kind of embrace that doesn't promise a perfect life, just an honest one. When the camera would have stopped, her smile remained soft, unguarded, eternal. Weeks later, the lobby of Harrington Hotel gleamed under new light. Guests walked past a framed painting hung in the center, the light she drew. Below it, a small plaque read, "Tess Morgan Harrington." The chandelier in the painting glowed like it was alive, every line of graphite turned into gold. And if you listened closely, you could almost hear her voice in the distance, calm, certain, timeless. She ran after a man to return his wallet, and found a life that money could never buy. Because some stories don't end in fairy tales. They end in truth, and begin again in love. If this story touched you, share it with someone who still believes in second chances. Thank you for watching and for believing that love, when real, is never just a contract.